Hi, my name is Brian English. We're at the forum name Hyperbytes, and we're going to continue this series by building our business index. So as discussed previously, I've built a very simple template page based around the previous two pages that we've done. So we've got our all businesses connection, and we're looking at page types of B. We've got our single big business connection, which we'll be calling interactively, so we're not auto-loading that. We've got a simple heading, business index, and then we've got an empty row and column. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a business index within this. Just before going any further, I want to just pop over into the main template. First of all, it occurred to me that we didn't actually add our last history page into the menu. Following on from that, I realized we actually don't have a history option in that index. So I'm just going to add a new nav item in there. I want to call that history. And we'll add that into our menu. While we're busy, we might as well add the business index in that we've just created as well. Don't forget, these routes are automatically created every time you create the page in the pages view, because that's the way Node works basically. So that's great. Now we can go back to business and we can discuss how we're going to do that. And the process I'm going to use this is to start with that very simple process I use within the history of that repeating row, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use bootstrap cards within that to display the basic details of the business, and then I'm going to show you how to use a parameter within a root link to be able to link to a separate page which will show all of the businesses data within that separate page. So it's a slightly different process. Each time I do this, I want to make it a little more complicated, or not, a little more sophisticated, shall we say, and build on various different techniques. So that's basically where we're going to go with this module. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. Okay, so let's start with making that row a repeat children row. As we did with the other page, we're going to repeat on the all businesses data query, and we're going to have that unique key is set to the page content ID. That's a unique ID of that page. That's great. We're in a column, and what we're going to do now is we're going to drop a card into that column. Lots and lots of choice with cards. As always, generally they don't always have the exact card you want, but they're really easy to move about. So I will have a text. I would like an image. So we'll have a top image card. So you can see there we have place for the image. We have an ideal place for the title, ideal place for at least some of the description. The only thing it's missing is we probably want a button in there as well, but let's not worry about it for the moment. We can now very easily add a dynamic element to the title, and that value is going to be from the repeat, very important, from the repeat, the title. And then we're going to have the same thing with the business description. So we're going to go to display. It's going to be inner HTML because it's an HTML field, and we're going to choose the description. But some of these descriptions are extremely long, and we really don't want to show the whole thing, so let's use the truncate formatter. We'll find here. Now what we say is we don't want to show anything more than, let's say, 300 characters. Use word boundary means it won't actually chop any words off halfway in the middle, and you can have it append something, so dot 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 to show that there's more to follow. If we do that, then you can see that we have these text descriptions appearing. In actual fact, none of them are over 300 anyway. But we also notice, because of the different sizes of text, each of these are now all different sizes, and it's very easy to do. We just add a class of H100 to that, and now we'll see each of those cards will be identical size. We don't need the update message on, so let's just get rid of that as well. But save that. Now we're talking about our image. So again, really simple here. We're going to make it responsive on the thumbnail. We're going to attributes, images, source, and if I remember rightly, it's uploads slash page images slash, sorry, then we need the page content ID, and then we're going to have full, and then lastly we're going to have the image link of that very first image in the thing, and that's why I say images brackets here, and that shows that it is the first image in the system. And if I've got that path right, because I did that from memory, it looks like I probably didn't get it right. I'm just going to quickly have a look in the files here. Public, uploads, yeah, page images. Yeah, it looks like we are right. Let's save that, fire it up in the browser, and no, we're definitely not right there. There's something wrong. We're missing a slash after the word full. So let's back into Wappler. So there's a / there. That's better. We now see those pictures appear as they should in our business index. Fired up in the browser, and you can see now that we've got the cards showing the name of the business, the description, and the various pictures. And that looks great if we're in a big monitor, but as we put that down, it gets horrible and squashed. We probably don't want that, so let's start doing some of that responsive programming that we talked about. So I'm going to click on the column that it's in. We always start with the mobile. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it 1 card wide on mobile. And you can either do that from the drag bars as I did before when you selected a column, or in here somewhere when we find it, you can set the size in there, and it's being, oh, there we are in here. So we can see we can have it 6 wide, or we can have it 12 wide. Bear in mind, Bootstrap, it's a 12 column formatting. So now let's look at our phone landscape, and I think we can probably get away with 6 there. In other words, 2 images stock cards side by side. We see that's set nicely to 6. If we go on to bigger devices, let's say if I get a laptop, I would like 3 images. I'll just do that from that particular location. So there we are, we can see 3 images side by side, and then finally on the very largest of it, we'll just go 3. So if I now save that, Let's fire that up. You see there, because I'm in a large monitor here, we've got 4 side by side. And it's not the recommended way to do it. There is a proper function within Developers Console. But what I can do is just drag that across the screen now. And we'll see as our visual gets smaller, we now go into the 3-column basis. And then we go into 2 columns as we get down to tablet and mobile landscape. And then lastly, when we get right to the very bottom, that's our portrait mobile device showing 1 image or 1 card per screen. So that's the start of our page. We've got our images, we've got our title, we've got our description complete with spelling mistakes, and we've now got our responsive card. So now we've got to look at how we're going to deal with getting the full details of that particular store. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, I'm going to go into our layout page. If we click on that, we'll see down here we have a define query parameters option. And we're going to create a query parameter. I tend to name these after the actual field. So that parameter is page content ID, because that's what we're going to be passing from one page to another. So I'm going to save that. And let's go into our business page. Actually, before that, we'll now create a new page. We're going to call that show business. Link to that main. So that's saved now. We have the page there, and we obviously have the root as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to amend that root, and we're going to pick up the parameter. So we've got our basic page started. I'm just going to do the usual container, row, and a column. We're going to put a heading in, but I'm not going to add any content to that heading yet, because obviously we need to be able to display some data in there. So one other thing we've got to do is we've actually got to make, remember we used to create that current single server action in our previous ones that we used within a modal. Well, we're going to use exactly the same server action here. We're going to have the page single, but in this case the ID is going to come from that query that we've defined before. So we're going to pass that page ID from our business page to our show business page, and that way we can show the correct record. And I should at this stage be able to already go inner text, and then we can just put the heading in for the moment, just so you can see where we are. Pop the title in there. But of course, at this stage we haven't actually passed any parameters on. We haven't amended our root. So let's now go on to do that, to change that root to allow for a parameter to be passed, and then we can show how we can pick that up on the show business page. So how we're going to deal with this parameter passing over from one page to the other, that's really simple. If we go into our routing panel, we'll see we already have that show business route created automatically by Wappler. All we need to do is put slash and then a colon. This means there's a parameter follow, and then the name that we give to the parameter, and that's going to match the parameter name that we created within our layout page. So there we are, we've got that in there. You can, if the parameter is optional, just mention, if you put a question mark at the end of it, it will allow that parameter to be optional, which is useful on some occasions. I'm just going to make sure everything's saved. So now, what we want is when somebody clicks on the card, I'm just going to do it at card level. What we want to do is to send them to our show business page, and we want to pass the page content ID of the record which this card is displaying. Sounds complicated, it's not, it's actually incredibly simple. I've selected a card, I'm going to go down to the dynamic events, I'm going to go mouse click, then we're going to pick an action, and I'm going to pick the action. We already have the browser component installed within the layout, so it's already available. I'm going to pick the routing. I'm going to select that new route, and then we're going to add the page info, page content ID that is within that repeat. And I'm actually going to remove that repeat 0 in because that is actually a bug that I need to report. That should just read page content ID. I'm going to save that. And that file is saved successfully. What this means now is that when we click on that button, our browser is going to take us to the show business page, and it's going to pass the page content ID along with it. So let's give that a try, just see if that works. Here we are, we've got our businesses, and if I click anywhere on that card, you'll see we click into, you'll see that the title is changing, showing that it's selecting the correct record when it's clicked. So now we can just look at creating that page, giving it some more detail, and then we've actually got what we wanted to achieve. That really was quite simple, wasn't it? So now back into Wappler, and what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little bit more work on the show business page. Now bear in mind it's pulling a data query in live within App Connect, and of course page query, the page content ID is not defined, and we won't actually see any data in here. So I'm just going to take it out of App Connect mode so we can see what's happening on the screen. So next is, I suppose, add another row as we've done in previous ones, and a column within there, and then I'm just going to add the text of the shop into here dynamically. So that's going to be our attributes display. We're going to use HTML obviously for this because the description contains HTML. And we want the con business data query description field. That's fairly straightforward as we did before. Obviously we just see the placeholders that the Wappler automatically puts in on the screen at the moment because there is no live data available. And then lastly, I think this time we'll show the images in fairly small, the cover version of the images, and then I'm going to show you a new technique to be able to view the larger image based on the smaller image using something called lightbox. So let's drop another row in first, and let's drop a column in, and then we're going to make that row a repeat row as we did before as a repeat children. You can rename these repeats, by the way. I haven't in the last couple because I'm trying not to make these videos too long, but certainly if you have more than one repeat on a page, I would certainly recommend that you change the ID so they can see what each image, or so each repeat is doing. That expression for that is our query images array. And now we're unique ID, as we've done before, is that image ID. So now we've just got to add that image in again. But I'm not going to use an image, I'm actually going to use an anchor image, and we'll see why. What's an anchor image? An anchor image is an image which is wrapped in an A tag, so it is also a link. So we've done that. Make sure that image is responsive. So you see here we have the ability to be able to add a link to that image, but separately there is the content of the image there. What we're going to do is we're going now to add a cover image to one of those links, and we're going to add the larger image to the other, and that will allow us to blow that up. But we actually have to add a new component first, so I think we need to move on to that one next. So this is a straightforward process. First of all, we're going to go up to our Connect panel, and we're going to add the lightbox component, which is here. There are certain options to add to that. I'm not going to do any of those. I'm just going to leave it as absolutely standard. You're welcome to play with them when you go to do this yourself. We've already set our image, of course, so I'm actually going to do a little bit of a cheat here, or not so much a cheat, just make things quick. I'm going to copy that path back in the anchor image, because I need to use that path now as the link, but as this is dynamic, we actually need to do this from the dynamic attributes. So we'll go links, link, open with a lightning bolt. I'm going to switch the code and I'm going to paste that path in. But of course we don't want the cover image, we want the full image now. So I'm just going to overtype that with full. And then very last thing, we're actually going to tell that any click on that anchor image that it should open that link within the lightbox component. So we go into display, and you see we can chart bear pick open in lightbox. We'll save that. Now if we fire this up in our web browser with luck, we'll be able to sorry, we can't actually do that directly from there. Of course, we must start from the business page because we need to pass the parameter across. So there's our business page there. We'll go into the bakery, and now let's see if we can view those images larger. If we click them, you see now those images are blown up into a much larger image. And if we had the suitable quality of images uploaded, we could certainly make that full screen. But in this particular case, they're fairly low quality images because if you remember, we did drop the quality down quite a bit in the API actions. If you remember in our page data images, when we uploaded our image, we resized this object. And the largest one that we have in there is 640. If you want to go full screen, then obviously you need to have an image which bigger. You could add another stage in here, a resize and save, and maybe call that full, call it master or very large or whatever you want to do, and have those images stored. So we're storing 3 versions of it: a high res, a full size, that's a 640, and your cover as well. But that's a matter for yourself. I work on it's not always easy to find high quality images of local places like this unless I go out with my own camera, which I'm not going to do. So I was happy to settle for the 640. But we see now that that page is working beautifully. I'll just run through it again if you wish, just to show you how it works. There we have our business page. We select anywhere in that card because the whole card is a link. We've got the images to go up. Now the only other thing we've got to do, of course, getting a bit ahead of myself there, is that we need to make this responsive. So with our images loop here, this column, we need to think about how many images we're going to show on which device. So I think we can probably cover maybe 2 on a mobile device. So we've got that should now be showing column 6. Yep. Maybe on a landscape we could get away with 3 of those cover images side by side. So yeah, that's 4. Then as we get to tablet, we'll leave that at 4. As we go to the laptop, size 3, so you're going to get 4 images side by side. We'll leave that same for a standard monitor, but on a very large monitor there's no reason why we couldn't drop that right down to 1. So we get 12 images side by side. So let's leave it at 2. Not to squeeze them down too much. So we save that now into our business index again. Sorry, that's opened up on the wrong screen again. There we are, we've got 3 images as we see them. And I'm just again going to show you how that scaling will work. We've actually only got 3 images, so it's only going to really be the very large. Sorry, the very small, that's our mobile level. You see how it goes in 2 and then 1 on the next line. And as we increase the size of the screen, it'll go to 3. And if we had enough images, you can see there would be 6 images across here if we had that number of images. So I think that's everything we need for that module. There's lots of things you could do to these, you can give a little bit of color to this panel perhaps. You could put a border around the image or whatever you want. Certainly in the show business screen here. Again, this is very basic. You can add some coloration to it, improve the layout, add some background panels in, borders, whatever you want, change fonts, etc. But again, that would be very boring for you to go through that. So I'm going to leave this module here, and the next module is going to be a little more complex, nothing serious, because we're going to be looking at buy sell. So we will need people to be able to add a message and indeed direct message the seller regarding the item. So I hope you'll join us with that module, and thanks for staying with me.